Thanks so much, Melanie, for introducing me. I am a mixed media artist and textile dabbler. I love both of these creative practices. And my background is as an academic in English literature and autobiography studies. So one of the things that is helpful to know is that my paintings are actually autobiographical. So my background in stories and telling our stories makes its way into the pieces too, because here I am telling my story in various ways through a visual practice rather than a verbal one or an autobiographical one in the traditional written sense that we think of. So that's probably the first thing to keep in mind. And the second thing is visual stories. Here we go. So the big question that I am often asking myself when I'm doing art is the question, how can I express visually what I am feeling experientially? And so that's taken a few different focuses. The first picture there is from my chronic illness series. And what I was trying to do in that series was to depict visually what I was experiencing in my body as I was dealing with the illness. And so you can see that it's quite abstract. The paintings here in the Stories of Light series are less abstract, are also abstract, but in slightly different ways. So you'll see the picture in the middle is actually not one that is shown here, but one of the things that I have been exploring with the Stories of Light series is, what is my experience of light? So what does it feel like when I am in the midst of light in different contexts, and especially light as it's moving through a translucent surface? So I'm really drawn to stained glass because the way the light shines through the glass is quite beautiful and powerful. And the one in the middle there represents my experience of taking off my glasses out in the woods and looking at the light that is filtering through the leaves and through the branches. And because my eyesight is so poor, I get to see orbs of light as they sort of shimmer through the leaves and the branches. The first time I did this, I think I was in Pacific Spirit Park, and I took off my glasses. I was like, wow, it's so magical. The woods are so magical. I mean, I always felt like this out in the woods, but it just felt like the woods were alive in a different way because I was seeing the light in a different way. And so as you look through the images and the pictures here, I hope that you'll see not just the ones that are stained glass, but there's also ones that represent this experience of these orbs of light, and also water reflecting in and through, light reflecting in and through water. So you can see if you can find those ones that are less obvious than the ones here. So I want to share a few things about my work here, this Stories of Light series, to help you understand the pieces a little bit better as you're looking at them. The first thing, if we can switch the slide up, is looking at the process of my work. So if I'm trying to depict what something feels like experientially, I'm actually also really interested not in necessarily just what the outcome will be like, but what that whole process is like, the whole process of doing the art. And so I usually come into a piece of art with something in mind, an idea, a feeling, an experience, and then see where the picture takes me. So sometimes I have certain shapes in mind, sometimes I have some colors in mind, and then I just get started. And I usually find that I end somewhere where I did not expect when I started. I don't think I've ever had a piece in my last two series anyways, where I knew exactly what I wanted to depict and depicted exactly that. Most of it is this process of moving from a feeling to an expression through a process. So that's really helpful to understand, I think. And for me, the main processes are abstraction and symbolism. So there's two pieces here from my previous series. And what I was trying to depict there was either both symbolically and abstractly, again, what I was feeling. So the first one is from a triptych called Barren, and the second one was called Cellular Dysfunction. And so those are abstract and symbolic expressions of this internal state or this experience of embodiment that I was experiencing. So what I love about abstraction is that I feel like I see it everywhere in nature. Anytime I go and look at something really closely, it looks abstract to me. It ceases to look like I'm expecting, because I see things at a certain angle or a certain direction, and as soon as I move in closely, oh, it looks different, and I'm struck by that, and I get to see something in a new way. The same thing happens if I'm moving far away from something. So I love when this happens. I'm flying from Vancouver to Toronto, where my family lives, and over the prairies on a clear day, when I'm sitting at the window, I see this patchwork below me, and there's suddenly a different image than what I normally. Well, first of all, I don't normally see the prairies, but when I do, it's on the ground. So I'm looking at it from a different angle and seeing something new as a result of that. So the images then down the far side are pictures that I've taken that feel abstract to me, but they're actually straight from nature. So a lot of my inspiration is from nature, but it's looking at nature not in its typical representational sense, but either really close or really far, or with the glasses off, or something that helps me see the familiar in a defamiliarized way, which is really fun. I also love abstraction because it allows you as viewers to see whatever it is that you see in a painting. So whatever resonates with you, whatever is meaningful to you, that's what comes out in the pieces for you. And so that's the wonderful thing about abstraction. It allows for multiple perspectives and multiple interpretations. And so it gives the viewers a lot of agency when they're looking at pieces. So just want to share a little bit about my intention for this Stories of Light series. Artists, I think every artist, is enamored with light. And that's because light is what we see things by, it's how we see, and the light changes what we see. If we were in this sanctuary in the daytime, for instance, the images on the walls, the paintings, would look different because of the way the light is shining into the space. So light is so critical. It's how we see color. All of these dimensions of light are so powerful. So first of all, I'm just enamored with light, but also enamored with the idea of how light moves through translucent surfaces in various forms, through glass, through water, through leaves, and such. But what I was interested in specifically with this set of pieces here, and most of these pieces are representative of stained glass, is the stained glass process itself. When I looked into what glass is and the process of creating stained glass, I was actually quite excited by that. It turns out that glass, and many of you probably know this, is a combination of sand and soda ash heated to very extreme temperatures till it can start flowing, and then you can turn it in, you can blow the glass, you can shape the glass in many ways. It can be flat, it can be round. We have this mobility thanks to the heating process of this combination of sand and soda ash. And then of course certain minerals and pigments, elements, are added to the glass to give it the different colors. And what struck me when I read that, I thought, oh, that's kind of like the spiritual life, isn't it? At least my own spiritual journey and my own journey through chronic illness, or let's say not through, but with chronic illness. It is this experience of transformation that occurs, but it's a kind of painful transformation to create beauty out of, and something that reflects light out of sand and ash. So basically, beauty from ashes, I think of that passage, is really powerful as I think about the way stained glass works. And then of course, that's just the glass process. If you want to make stained glass, this beautiful artwork that we see, you're going to be chipping the glass and cracking it and breaking it and scoring it in order to get it into the shape and the frame that, that you want as an artist. And so there's sort of, I want to capture a sense of brokenness and painfulness within the beauty. And so I hope that some of those pieces do reflect that they're beautiful, but there's something that feels painful in a way too in the process, because that is, if I were a piece of glass and I was in a stained glass, that would be the process of getting there. And so that to me is really, really fascinating. So my intention behind it is, when you look at the pieces, I hope you see something of that beauty and brokenness connected together in powerful ways. So a couple of things with the process. People often ask me, well, what's my process? How do I move from like a blank, I was gonna say canvas, but I don't work on canvas, I work on wood panel. So how do I move from a wood panel to a finished piece? And so the main thing that I do is I work in layers. And so I tried to depict that. So this is part of the process that got me to the rose window that you see second here on the side. So starting with the bottom layers, the gesso, and then the drawing of it, so I know what I'm doing for this one. This was actually quite meticulous. It wasn't my typical process. So, but it does show the layers. So then the layers of paint, the layers of paper, then the layers of alcohol inks, and then eventually we move from there to what we see on the wall. But it's helpful to know, I think, that all of my pieces probably have anywhere between 3 and 10 layers. I have a very layered process, and I love this. Acrylic paint lends itself very well to layers because it dries so quickly that you need to keep putting layers on top to get the kind of depth you want or need that other mediums, like say oil paint, gives you a lot of depth within its pigmentation because of the oil. Acrylic, you don't quite get the same depth of color and, I don't know, resonance, I guess, without doing a lot of layers. And so I love that layering process. I think it's really fun. Also in the process of layering, I realized that one particular layer doesn't matter that much. A lot of the layers, as we get to the final layer, are ugly and discordant, and I don't like them. And so it's great because I can say to myself, oh, well, this will just add to the depth. I mean, some of this layer will show in the end, probably, but this layer on its own adds itself. No big deal if it's ugly. We'll just add another layer. And I keep adding layers until I feel like the piece is done. And so if if you flip to the next slide, you'll see the layers that went into the first piece and the back piece there. So the first one, it did have the same patterning. So I had that pattern laid out, but it went from just a plain yellow to quite a vibrant piece meant to reflect this dancing spheres. And the second one, I think one of you was actually over at my place and I said, I really wanted to do a piece. I don't know what I wanted to do, but I wanted it to depict through a glass darkly. I really like that line, through a glass darkly. And so, but weirdly, I ended up with this. It was this bright thing with a bunch of brightly colored spheres. And so I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with that. And then it ended up being the final piece that we see at the back of the sanctuary, through a glass darkly. It did end up being through a glass darkly, but it went through quite a few variations or layers before it ended up actually depicting through a glass darkly in the way that I was hoping. But even still, it didn't end how I expected. And so this is the exciting thing for me, that as I move through the process, I don't know where I'm going to end, and that journey is really exciting. So the process for me is really powerful. So just want to finish by giving a few, influences on my work. So you may see other influences as well, but here's a few that stick out to me. The first is stained glass. Obviously, I am pretty enamored by stained glass. I mean, I don't have Marc Chagall or Sigmar Polk up here, but they've been quite influential. But there is the stained glass by Alan Younger, which the pieces right at the door are modeled after that particular stained glass. I really like abstract expressionism, and that makes its way into my art, especially Cubism and other early expressionists, abstract expressionism. You'll see also fake stained glass, graphically created, inspires me. Being out in nature and taking off my glasses inspires me. And all the geometric patterns that we see when we're out in nature. So looking, for instance, at the trees. And I often think of the branches as the lead casing and the light behind, the sky behind it, as if it were stained glass. So I often am thinking about visions of stained glass. And then, of course, because I'm also a textile enthusiast, very exciting, quilts. Their geometric patterns entice me. And so I'm always excited about quilting, but also depicting things that look sort of like quilts in my work. So I'll leave you with that. I'll let you get back and take a look at the pieces. I'm here to answer any questions, but I'm so glad you were able to come and join me. And I really hope you love the pieces and find you're able to meditate with them a little bit over this season as well. So thank you.